So we just arrived at Parliament. We're in the building. We got in, and yeah, we're just waiting because we're gonna have a tour first around, just see where everything is, see what's going on, and then we'll be on our way to meet Grant.
I'm sorry, really sorry to keep you. Quite a good excuse. I was with Boris Johnson, our next Prime Minister, so I'm sure we can discuss. Yes. And I said to him, I'm sorry, I've actually got to go now because I've got students from Welwyn Hatfield coming up, and they are more important than you, immediately Prime Minister. So I'm with the more important people now. Yeah, I think it's a real problem, but I want to set it into context, which are two things. First of all, Hertfordshire happens to be one of the two safest counties in the country, so it's actually a very safe county compared with almost everywhere else. And I looked up the knife crime murders last year, and the figures are, although have risen too far and too fast, and one murder was too many for knife crime, but the numbers are low hundreds. It's not, you kind of switch on the media and you think like there are people dying in their thousands every day on the streets, and it's not that. But it clearly does need to be gotten on top of. And I've got a couple of proposals. One is, I think we should have, this has been used before quite successfully, including here in London, knife crime amnesties, where people have ended up with these knives. They're illegal. Some of them are not knives that you could buy off the shelf and what have you. And an amnesty allows for that knife to be handed in. There's no criminal sanction. So in other words, you won't get arrested or prosecuted if you hand it in. In fact, actually what they do is set up bins where, maybe even a family member says, come on, let's get this knife out of the house, I'm going to go and drop it in, or maybe they even just drop it in without telling anyone. So those amnesties can collect thousands of knives. I think there's one in London that collect 10,000 knives. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I do believe that you have to use some amount of stop and search. The stop and search is where police have the powers to stop people in the street and say, look, can I just check you're not carrying a knife? And this became very controversial. And the reason it became controversial in the kind of 80s and 90s was because they were stopping and searching far more black ethnic minority men in particular, and so it sort of starts to be seen as, maybe that's racist of the police if they do that. But I actually think the balance has gone too far the other way. I think actually it protects people, not least the people who are the most likely to be victims of a stabbing, to have police proactive on this. Most people who are stabbing, there are some random cases, but nearly everybody knows the person who's stabbing them, or it's gang orientated or what have you. If you don't give the police the power to step in and do something about it, then I think the problem gets worse. So I think those sort of things would really help. And the rest of it is just, I think, a bit sort of, it becomes like a cultural, and in as much as if it becomes acceptable to carry a knife, then everyone's carrying them, and then more people carry them because, well, you've got to carry a knife because, you've got to, through education, unwind that as well. So I think schools and education and that side of things is important. Right. I'm pleased you asked that question. Okay, so here we go. 3 years ago, last month, 3 years ago, the country voted to leave, and Welwyn Hatfield actually voted to leave as well. So Welwyn Hatfield was a Leave constituency. I actually voted Remain, so I was slightly at odds with my own area. But anyway, the country voted to leave. We're a democracy, and in my view, even though I was a Remain voter, we do have to follow democracy, otherwise there's no point in telling people, we said we will have a referendum, we will follow the results of the referendum, and then people are sort of, oh no, we're not going to follow the results of the referendum, which I think is really damaging to people's faith in politics. So I do think we need to leave. It's been 3 years, and the long and the short of it is we have messed around no end, failed to reach agreement. Even the agreement that the government managed to reach, Parliament here disagreed with, and 3 times Parliament has voted against the agreement that Theresa May as Prime Minister reached. So we've sort of hit a brick wall, and the agreement's not being agreed, Parliament's not saying what it wants to do. Obviously the leadership change is in that context, so I think that Boris Johnson's probably going to win, and this time next week we'll know, because the result is 11 o'clock next Tuesday, so you can put it in your calendars. And he will say that we're going to leave, regardless of whether it's with a deal with Europe or without a deal with Europe, on the 31st of October. So just after you go back to school, a month or 2 later, he will leave. And so that's broadly what's going on. People feel very passionately about it. Like I just walked back across in front of Parliament. I don't know if you walked in that way at all, but there'll be people protesting on both sides of the argument. And I think most people I speak to, people just want to see it sorted, and they're not actually, most people aren't that 100% bothered. I mean, some people are really bothered, but for the most part, I actually personally think life would go on either way. I mean, I thought it would be easier not to leave, which is why I voted Remain. But if the country wants to leave, I'm quite sure we can be successful outside of the EU. There's a big world out there of 7 billion people who don't live in Europe. And obviously we're going to have to trade with those people more and that sort of thing. So, I don't like it when they disrupt, say, for example, the underground, and then people have to drive in instead or something like that to get to work. Is really silly, and it's a bit counterproductive, because obviously it's more environmentally friendly to take the underground, which is driven electrically, by the way, so it can be low carbon. But having said that, I think it's undeniable that when people do protest, actually sometimes they really do get listened to, and I really actually think Extinction Rebellion specifically has had quite a notable impact. So Parliament just the other week voted to make this country the first major economy in the world to go zero carbon, carbon neutral by 2050, which sounds like a long time away, but it will soon come around. And I think by doing that, it will force industry and government and people and individuals to really start to think about how they stop burning fossil fuels and become environmentally friendly. So I think it actually is quite exciting, and I think it's a good thing to do, and I think we will look back in years to come, and you will be able to tell your children and your grandchildren that you remember when it was perfectly acceptable for cars like bellowing out disgusting fumes to kind of drive past schools and things, and it will seem like another world. They'll go, that can't be the case. How could we've ever allowed that to happen? Well, there was some other technology, I suppose, but I do think that the wider point is completely valid. We need to, invent planes. We've already invented cars which are zero carbon, so a lot of the electric cars are going to be all cars by 2040, so 10 years earlier. Again, new cars will have to be electric or zero carbon. And we're going to have to do the same with flights, although the technology isn't quite there. But then that's a great opportunity to invent, like I'm trying to get the University of Hertfordshire to invest in research to create electric flight, or low carbon flight at least, which would be amazing. I think just attitudes on all of these things have really shifted over the years, and which is good. People are just much more accepting. The kind of bit about that I know most about, I suppose. Well, I've got kids and they're at school, and so I see how attitudes have like really shifted, say, with your generation. But I think the other thing that's really changed is from a political point of view. Not like maybe 20 years ago, I mean this is actually true, 20 years ago there was a government, 25 years now, where the whole government became about almost personal morality. This is the John Major government. It became became known for what was called sleaze. And the sleaze was basically, if somebody lived their life as they wanted to, that would have been regarded as like somehow everybody else's business. And I think that was really bad. And just to go back to where I started, with Boris, there's a man with a very colourful private life. I mean, it's not an LGBT type thing, but nonetheless, it's his own private life. And he's probably about to become Prime Minister. And it's probably the first time ever where people will go, you know what, actually, it's not really our business whether he has a partner or a wife or has an argument, but it's just actually nothing to do with running the country. And I think I'm seeing that in Parliament as well, so I probably have, there are probably more gay, lesbian MPs in this Parliament than ever, by probably a long way, I would guess. But it's just become like a non-issue, whereas, again, a generation or so ago, it would be a really, really big deal. Now, I couldn't even, like I'd have to really stop and think to go around my colleagues, like even my party, the Conservative Party, to work out who was gay or lesbian or whatever. It's just a total non-issue. Well, one of Kushal's colleagues in my office is gay. Like, who cares? It just, and I think actually Parliament is like that, then other workplaces are more likely to be like that.